All right, folks, welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I am your host, Brian Call, coming at you from the Gritty Man Cave. It's a new location for us. Just for today, I'm here with my brother, Gritty Broman. Brent, how's it going?
It's going good.
Brent edited the podcast that you're going to hear today. It's with Chip Noble from Garmin. What'd you think?
It was really good. I was tech podcasts sometimes lose my attention, but it was pretty good. I was surprised.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of misconceptions around GPS devices, around the SOS features that each of these provide, how these rescues work. You know, you'll hear of guys having some disaster happen to them in the outdoors, and they have a device with them that has an SOS feature, like a spot or an inReach. You push that button, and the cavalry comes to rescue you.
Because, Brian, we live in a land of magic. I have a thing out there with wheels, and I put a key in it, and it takes me places.
Right.
I have a special brick in my pocket that lets me talk to anyone around the world. I don't know how it works.
Not just that.
It's magic.
Photos and videos with it.
Yeah, so it just works like that, right?
Yeah, magic for sure. And so we take for granted the magical capabilities of an SOS button, but really there's a lot that goes into it. And the ins and outs of how they work, I think is we should all know that as we go out into the wilderness. Safety is of paramount concern for everyone, especially those that I'm sure that leave a wife and children at home or a significant other. So on today's podcast, we got together with Chip, who is an expert on inReach and how the global satellites work, how the inReach works, best practices for the inReach or just GPS use in general for safety when you're going out on an adventure, all the steps you should be taking before you get there, and how the SOS works. So I think it's a very useful conversation. I hope it answers most of your questions regarding that and sets proper expectations. One thing I want to clarify right out the gate is that the Garmin inReach uses Iridium satellites, which orbit from the North Pole to the South Pole, the entire Earth. So as long as you have line of sight vision to the sky, at some point your message will be sent. There's not really a place in the world. There's not a place in the world that doesn't work. Now, atmospherical things can interfere with that, or a triple canopy forest can interfere with that. Things like that. So you do need. There are certain undeniable realities associated with how a GPS works, and you should know that as a user. And knowing these things will undoubtedly make you safer, because now best leverage that tool that you're using.
And it changes from where you're at. I mean, an SOS button's going to function differently in Idaho than it is going to
Mongolia?
be Mongolia. Yeah,
right. So is the global the rescue team in Mongolia versus Idaho. So those are things that need to be understood. You
could have SWAT team or Reno 911 trying to save you. It's kind of.
It's very it's good information. We also talk about Garmin's new 66i, which is their newest GPS
the new toy.
Like inReach combo. So it's pretty sweet, and I'm just getting my hands on one. But you're basically going to be able to carry one device that does it all, one ring to rule them all, and so. It's pretty cool in that regard, and for those that have map software that they're in love with, Garmin's devices are all compatible with whatever map software you like to use. But one thing I didn't realize, or is just still kind of new, is Garmin has their own map systems, and they have their their Hunt View maps. And those Hunt View maps show you private property boundaries. And in fact, Garmin has an entire ecosystem. So my Garmin Phoenix watch here, which I use a lot to mark GPS locations, to mark my camp, my tent, all of that.
Where you dropped your backpack. Which might be important.
Boom, I just click it real quick and I mark my location. Well, it's pretty sweet because I am able to interface with my watch to my GPS and back and forth and on my hunt maps. So that's a really powerful tool. And
especially if you don't remember that exact hunt, where you were maybe last year or the year before.
Well, a lot of times I don't want to dig out a GPS unit or an inReach or something to mark a location. And I got my watch. I use my watch more and more all the time. And I can just, boom, click.
You little cyborg.
Yep, I have it done. And then I can move on. And often the deal with me, too, is I really don't use a GPS for most of my hunts because I don't need one. I have a paper map and a compass. I've learned how to really leverage those, and I really like paper maps. I can throw them out. I get a big eye picture. I've already drawn where I want things to be. My Garmin Phoenix will give me my UTM code, and I can plot myself in a couple of seconds on a map. So I like that setup. I would say for the majority of my hunts, I don't need that. But I do want to mark a GPS location where I drop my pack, where my camp is, where all that is, and I just mark it on my phone, and I just mark it on my watch just in case the need arises or I can't find it or I'm coming back in the dark. But I use my watch to get me there. This is nice because the watch isn't the best interface for that. Your GPS unit is way better. And now that the two communicate back and forth, that would be very handy. But generally what I do is I mark wallow, I mark, bear wallow, glassing point, and I mark all that stuff on my watch. And then when I come home and I do some e-scouting and I look at my trip and all that, I've had trouble getting the content from my watch to my map system. It's like pretty seamless. So I can come home, download my GPS data like that, and I can analyze on the map systems, what's going on. So I really like that. Breadcrumb trails as well. I can track that now if I want to go ahead and leave it on. Sometimes I'll do that with my watch. And the Garmin Phoenix watch has an incredible battery life. The Sunto and some other competitors just suck battery, especially when you're running the GPS. Super impressed with the Garmin Phoenix watch system. So we get into the cost of the service plans. I think we covered mostly everything. So take a look, enjoy the podcast. Let us know what you think. Leave some comments below. If you got follow-up questions, let us know what they are. We'll sit down with Garmin again and go over more stuff. So hope this saves a life.
Or two. Whatever.
Or 10. Yeah. And sign up for the newsletter so we can keep you informed. We got new videos dropping here this week, some next week, of the New Zealand tar hunt. So check that out. Sign up for the newsletter so we can get a hold of you because, our stuff on social gets censored pretty good. So if you want to stay informed, just sign up for the newsletter. Go to briancall.com and sign up. Thanks for tuning in and stay gritty. All right, folks, welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I am here with Chip Noble. And Chip, you work at Garmin. And you specialize, your expertise is in the inReach department.
That's right. Yes, inReach satellite communication.
And for those who don't know, I've been using the inReach device for a few years now, and we take it on every single hunt that we go on, pretty much. And it's a satellite communication which allows us to send text. I have mine set up to send unlimited texts. When Ryan Lampers and I were in New Zealand just recently, we had zero service. We were out in the middle of the Southern Alps, and our sole, tether or communication back to our wives and family or to the, to civilization is through the inReach. And we're able to send text messages. We're able to check weather. And then, of course, there's that all-important SOS button if something goes wrong. So, today we're going to talk to Chip about Garmin, the Garmin inReach or satellite communication. We're going to talk about these SOS devices and how they actually work. And I think it's a relevant discussion. Is a lot of people, there's a lot of confusion around how these devices work. And, I feel like a lot of guys that go out, they'll buy something like this. they'll get a Garmin inReach or a Spot or something, and it's got that SOS button, and they think, okay, this magic button, all I got to do if something goes south is push that button and someone's going to be there to save me. And that right there, I think, there needs to be more education around that process and how it works. So I wanted to get into that today so that anyone that's listening is just prepared for the backcountry and for these situations where that SOS button might be needed, and also to give them some more information around how these tools can be leveraged. So Chip, let's dive right in. Tell me what is inReach?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate this. Is, as you've said, a great opportunity to share with your listeners all that is inReach and try and help answer any questions they might have. So I'll start right at the beginning in case anyone actually isn't familiar. inReach is a satellite communication device. It works with the Iridium satellite net that allows us to send and receive messages anywhere in the world. It's a powerful system because the Iridium satellites have a polar orbit. They travel from the North Pole down over the equator, past the South Pole in a polar orbit, which means you have global coverage. There are no dead zones anywhere in the world. You can take your inReach device, as you've done all over the world for hunting, for any activity. The other really important thing is the global coverage, but also the ability to send a message and receive a reply. So that's key, because you're not just sending a beacon. You're not just sending out a message and hoping that it's received. You actually get delivery confirmation on the device. So you'll see a little animated icon spinning to let you know that it's sending. When the satellite receives the message, it tells the device, and the device changes that icon, so you know that your message was received. That could be a casual message to friends and family. That could be an emergency message, as you mentioned, to search and rescue. So two-way messaging, global coverage, the ability to send and receive messages. You can track your location. So when you were out on your hunt, you could send, it's called a map share page. You send that to friends and family. They can follow along while you're on your hunt. So they see your track line. You can choose to turn it off if you have a special hunting area you don't want to let everyone know about. You certainly can hide the information, but for most people interacting with close friends and family, they let folks follow along. It actually allows them to participate in the activity in a way. They can use that MapShare page to send you messages. So sending and receiving messages, tracking, and then as we talked about, that ability to get delivery confirmation, to hear back from someone, take that into an SOS example. And when you declare your emergency, that message goes out to GEOS Search and Rescue. That is a 24/7 emergency response monitoring service that we are partnered with. They receive that message and they'll reply to you right away, and they'll say, what's the nature of your emergency? Is it a medical emergency? Have you had an equipment failure? What has happened that has caused you to press the SOS button? You can receive that message, read it, and then reply and give them extra information that helps them as they communicate back and forth between yourself as the user of the device and the local area search and rescue that they reach out to. They can give extra details and really help make things efficient and make sure that people understand the responders know what they need to be prepared for when they arrive, and give you updates. And very powerful tool for keeping people connected and informed as to what's happening during that kind of an emergency.
So let's get into how the SOS works in terms of, there's, as I understand it, the idea of communicating through the SOS or to GEOS, that's right there built into the device when you send the message. But right. I think a lot of guys don't know that. They don't know, they don't know that they have access to the actual if they send out a message and they want to communicate with GEOS, how do they do that?
That's a very good point. And as you mentioned, something that we really want to make sure your listeners, folks who are learning about the inReach, that they understand that two-way messaging capability that I described. I think everyone understands, well, I can send a message to my friend, they'll reply, we can have that chat. That same functionality is available when someone messages, when they declare SOS. They pull the little SOS door to the side, they press the button, their SOS message goes out. When they hear back from GEOS Search and Rescue, they will say, we've received your emergency. What's the nature of the emergency? That's a great opportunity to just reply to them and say, well, I've broken my ankle. I've had a fall. I need someone to come and help me. Or it could be, I'm way out in the backcountry and my truck is broken down. I need someone to help me. I can't, hike out of here. It's going to take forever. So those chances to send a message back, it does a bunch of different things. It helps keep GEOS informed. They know what's happening with you in your emergency. It gives you a peace of mind that you're interacting with a human being. When the message is received, that's the first piece that we see. People get a real sense of relief when they hear back from a person, and that person says, I've contacted local area search and rescue. I've contacted your emergency contacts. Your closest friends and family know that something's happening and we're responding. Then you can also reach out to search and rescue in the middle of your emergency. You can contact GEOS and say, hey, can I get an update on what's happening? They'll send you an estimated time of arrival for search and rescue. But that idea of keeping that channel open and reaching out if you have questions, don't just sit and wonder and worry where things are. That's why the inReach device is capable of sending and receiving.
So as I understand it, when you send out a message like with the SOS, that there are different satellites that do different things. So you'll have a satellite that handles the SMS or the text message portion, and then you have a satellite that handles coordinates. Is that correct?
Right. That is, yes. Yeah, definitely. So there are two satellite systems. One is GPS. That's your position. That's the government satellite that tells you your latitude, longitude, coordinate anywhere on the surface of the Earth. The other satellite network is that Iridium satellite network, and that covers the data for messaging, for tracking your location, and for SOS. So when someone goes out in the field to kind of best practices for the system, what we definitely want people to do is to turn on the device when you're at the truck before you head out for your hunt. Turn it on, let the GPS antenna reach out to the satellites. There's a bunch of things that a handheld GPS does when it first turns on. It downloads data from the satellites. It makes sure that it has the correct satellite constellation. There's a bunch of technical pieces, but really what it amounts to is it's getting your location wherever you are on the Earth. So imagine that you live in the U.S., but you travel to New Zealand, as you mentioned, for a hike or a hunt. That's a long way away from probably the last place that GPS device was turned on. Before you get into an emergency situation and you need to have a real fast interaction, turn it on. Give it a minute or two to find the new satellites, download that location information, show you where you are, mark a waypoint for where you left your truck so that you have something to find your way back to. I encourage people to log their breadcrumb trail when they go out into the woods. There's also the ability, obviously these devices have satellite tracking. We encourage people to turn on satellite. The live track is what's referred to in the newer devices, just general tracking. That sends your location to the satellite once every 10 minutes. That means that if an emergency happens, GEOS Search and Rescue has access to your account. The things that they'll do to try and help you is they'll look at your tracking information and see, okay, the hunter went into the woods in this location. They traveled through to here. Okay, we know where they are. When your SOS is happening, it sends your location as well, but there's just a bunch of extra details that they can pick up. So turn on the device when you get to the trailhead, create a waypoint, make sure it has a GPS fix. That kind of covers the GPS satellite side of things. And then positioning of the device is important for when you're sending and receiving Iridium messages, those satellite messages. You want to carry the device high on your person. So if you have your hunting vest, get it up on your shoulder, or if you're carrying a backpack, get it up high on the backpack. That gives it a nice clear view of the sky, because it is line of sight for GPS and for Iridium. So you want it to be able to see as many satellites as it can while you're sending and receiving messages. It sends what's referred to as a short burst data packet. It's a little bit different than a sat phone, which has to open up a broad spectrum channel and keep that channel open through the entire voice communication. It only needs a fraction of a second to get a short burst message out, but it does need to see one of the satellites. In my work, I talk to people who are in the mountains. Sometimes they're in canyon situations, places where there might be obstruction for that line of sight. So just be aware of that. If you find yourself in a situation where you really need that message to get out, you might look into the sky and say, where's my best chance of having a clear view? The closer you are to real steep mountains, you'll be blocked to that side. So you kind of look to where there's openings in the tree cover, openings in the rock that are around you, that sort of thing.
Right. Any of us who have been using a GPS unit for, I think more than 10 years now are pretty familiar with the need to, your coverage is better in certain areas than in others. And there are areas where, especially in a tall forest where I was in Oregon, I'd lose the satellites, or maybe if I'm in a steep canyon, like where we were in New Zealand, it'll happen, like you said, up on the wall there. But because it's sending out those burst messages, it'll just take a long time to send, but it eventually sends often.
That's right.
So tell me how that works.
That's a good point as well. So when the device sends a message, because of that two-way capability, it knows if the satellite made the connection and received the message. And if you're in a steep canyon area, an area with real dense tree cover, triple canopy, that sort of thing, the device recognizes that it hasn't sent your message, so it cues it and it waits, and it will try again. And so when you look at your device if the message hasn't gone out yet. And that queuing is really nice because it means it doesn't just attempt to send it 3 times and then stop. It will send the message, and if it can't it will try and make the connection. And until it makes the connection, it holds that. So that happens for messages. It happens for your tracking points. It happens for your SOS messages. And we do some important things on the device, like manage that queue, that priority. So if you have a casual message that you send to friends and family, if you have track points, those sort of things will be lower on that queue of messages if you declare an SOS. SOS messages are the highest priority. We always send those first. Then we'll send messages, and then once the queue is emptied from that content, we'll send tracked messages. But it really, the key for me, having used devices that have that send and receive capability and the queuing, and I've also used devices that don't have that and just send a message once, twice, and then you hope that they went out. There's a real peace of mind in being able to look at the device and see
absolutely
that the message has gone, and so that's a real powerful thing.
Let's say you're in a steep slot canyon and you're having trouble getting the connection, the message out. It's queued up for quite a while and it just keeps trying, and then it goes through. Now, is there the situation where the text message can go out, but the GPS coordinates don't?
There are, because the device is set up. The key for us is notification of emergency response that there's a situation. So there could be a situation where at the time that you declared the emergency, you didn't have a good GPS fix. It's not common, but when it does happen, we will prompt the person using the device and let them know that the GPS location isn't available, but the message is going to be sent. So GEOS will receive that message, and it opens the door for them to do some investigative work. They know that the message didn't have location, but they know that an emergency has been declared. They're able to look at the user's account, and that's why I say sometimes it could be that you sent a message just before you went into the difficult coverage area. So they'll know roughly where you are from those messages. And if you were tracking when you were going in.
It's like MapShare.
MapShare, yep. They have access to the account and they can see that breadcrumb trail. So they know how you've traveled. One of the other important pieces is if you're tracking and something happens and you aren't able to declare an SOS, then your friends and family, the whole plan the hike the plan kind of thing. You have told somebody, I'm going to this area and I'm expecting to come back out of the woods at this time. If you don't come back out of the woods, the first step is to go to that MapShare page and kind of check on things. See.
Yeah. If you had a spill or you got mauled by a bear and you're, unconscious, whatever, like if you're missing and you're not able to use the device, and you had your breadcrumb trail on, it's like people can go in and go, I haven't heard from him in a day or two. And
That's
that
right.
can mean the difference between, having to cut your arm off in a rock shoot or.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And I think the other, because sometimes I'll have conversations with people and they express a concern about battery life, or perhaps they're a budget conscious user and they don't have the recreation plan, which has the unlimited tracking. Safety plan does have the ability to send check-in messages. So you could turn the device on, send that check-in message, and then you're not actively transmitting every 10 minutes, but your device is powered on, so it's on your pack. And if something happens and we're talking about a situation where the user can't interact with the device, there's still the potential for the person that goes to MapShare to use the locate feature. So for myself at home, if I knew that you were out on a hunt, but you hadn't checked in like you said you were going to, I could actually go to MapShare and hit the locate option. The satellite will send a message down to your device, and even if you can't interact with it, it will say, "Hey, where's Brian? What's happening?" And they'll be able to look, and your device will respond. The challenges are around clear view of the sky and that sort of thing, but that's a handy feature. We have a lot of people take advantage of the locate feature.
So let's say I am in a steep slot canyon and I know it's had trouble getting the message out. Message goes out. I could go directly into the text message string at that point, correct? And I can go ahead and follow up with another text message and I could send them my GPS location, my waypoint. I could text that to them, correct?
Well, you could, you don't actually have to, because as soon as the device finds your location, it will send it again. So when you declare an SOS, your location, a message and your location, if it's available, will be sent once every minute for 10 minutes. And then from there, it's sent every 10 minutes just during a normal, the regular use of SOS. So that is to try and make sure that GEOS has the most up-to-date information for where you are. I think the key for the people listening to your podcast is to know that when you declare SOS, as soon as it has a view for the Iridium satellite, it will send out your message. As soon as it gets the GPS location, which GPS, it's interesting because GPS is usually easier to acquire than satellite if you're in normal conditions. But that Iridium satellite, you only have to see one satellite for just a short period of time to get the message out. And that's why on occasion you can get an Iridium message when
right.
GPS has been acquired.
A GPS requires three satellites to pinpoint your location, triangulate.
Yep. Mm-hmm. But as soon as the inReach device gets that, it will send the next message to GEOS, and then they'll know exactly where you are.
Well, I should tell people that are not familiar with the Garmin inReach, you can you can interface with it through your phone.
That's right. Yes.
Which is really handy because I can go in there and I can do all my texting and so forth through the phone that communicates with the inReach. So I don't have to use the interface on the inReach device. And a lot of my friends use the inReach Mini for that reason, which is smaller. And it really, because 90% of the interaction with it is done through the phone anyway. Yeah. Now, when I've been on some very remote hunts for extended periods of time, keeping my battery on my phone charged is a pain in the butt. Plus, the temperatures on some of those hunts were so low that it just sucked the life out of my smartphone. Yeah. The smartphone is not the best device for it's just not built for the backcountry. For extreme cold, wet conditions. The battery isn't built for it. It can't handle it. And so on those type of hunts, I've traditionally taken the larger inReach with me because it's a little easier to type in my messages. It's still not my favorite interface, but it gets the job done. Yeah. And so I'm able to text messages and do all that. Plus the battery life is much longer on the bigger device than the small device.
That's true.
But when weight is an issue and I'm not in the backcountry for long extended periods of time, and especially when the weather conditions are like September, I do like bringing my phone in the Mini and using that combo.
Yeah, there's a lot of flexibility. Actually, we're excited. We have quite a few options for satellite communication within inReach. Now I brought a couple of little, got the inReach Mini. That's the one you were talking about, 3.5 ounces, very small, and it connects to my Garmin wearable. So I have the Phoenix watch connected to the inReach Mini, connected to the EarthMate app that you mentioned on your phone. I can power my phone off, as you pointed out, to save battery, and then maybe when I'm in the tent at night trying to get my planning for the next day, or if I'm going to do a bunch of messaging because I'm warm, I can take the phone out, power it on, connect to the Mini. If a message comes in during the day to the Mini, my watch will let me know about it, and then I can reply with quick text from my watch to the Mini, or use the Mini as you had mentioned. We also have the larger, you referenced the inReach Explorer Plus. That's a buttoned interface. It has a nice 120-hour battery life. It has topographic maps. So you can use it as a standalone handheld device for messaging, tracking, SOS, and that basic navigation with a topographic map.
And I remember when we were in British Columbia and I was up there with Dustin Rowe's crew at Backcountry BC and beyond, and all the different outfitters, guides, the horsemen, everyone had their Explorer Plus. And when we were trying to find trails or meet up with someone, it's whenever they send you a text inReach to inReach, it also sends that GPS location, so we could just ride exactly to where that person was. It's very, very convenient. And then the breadcrumb trails, you can pick those up as well and go, because in a bush like that, it can be so thick and you pick a way through it. It takes you a long time. And once you find a way through it, you want to be able to repeat that, and having that breadcrumb trail is nice. And there were a number of trails where the outfitters would get on those and they had to pick up the GPS and follow that, because it's the only way you're going to be able to navigate through that efficiently and quickly is to follow that path you've already taken. Otherwise you can just take a wrong turn and then be in there for hours.
Sure. Yep. Well, the thing for those guides, for yourself, I think everyone will be really excited. This is the new GPS.
What is that?
So this is the brand new GPS Map 66i. The exciting thing about this is that this is Garmin's flagship handheld GPS device. So the best handheld, buttoned interface, rugged device, large display. It has the ability to have an SD card slot on the side, so you can load in your hunt view map, which gives you the bird's eye satellite imagery. It gives you your public lands. It gives you the hunt management units to show you all the different species and the zones where you can hunt. It gives you the parcel data on that Hunt View SD card. The device itself has direct bird's eye direct download, so you can just find the area you're going to and download through Wi-Fi right with the device. Really powerful, and it's the first, of Garmin's rugged handheld devices to have all the inReach capability built into it. So you have a messaging page, you have the live track capability. You can declare an SOS with a little button on the side if you need to. So very, very powerful. And this just came out this summer, and it will, again, it'll connect to your watch, to your Fenix watch. It will connect to your phone. It uses a new Explore app, which is kind of the next generation of our EarthMate app. The Explore app has the ability to show the topographic data. You can get USGS quad sheets here in the U.S. You can get aerial imagery in the U.S.
Okay, so let me make sure I understand all this. Okay, Chip.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're telling me that the new device, the 66i, that it has maps on it. Does it come with these maps, or do I buy them separately?
It comes preloaded with the topographic maps for all of North America. Well, they're different SKUs depending on what part of the world you live in. But for here in the U.S., the SKU would be the North American SKU, which has topographic for U.S., Canada.
Okay, and then when I have that map, what's the Hunt View map? Is that something I get separate?
The Hunt View map is a Hunt View Plus, I believe, is the latest version. That's a Garmin sold by SD card by state, and you can load that into the SD card slot on the device. That gives you the parcel data, so you can see landowner details. It gives you the hunt management units, which are here in Maine. I need to know what zone I'm in for my whitetail deer season. That shows up on in the Hunt View data. And then the public land data. So out west, the public land is a big deal, and you can see that it's a polygon layer and lets you know where the public lands are.
And it'll give me satellite imagery as well.
And satellite imagery is a real important part of that.
So I often use like onX maps, and so you're telling me this Hunt View is very similar to that, then?
Yes, I would say it's a direct competitor to onX, and loaded into the 66i, you have it all right there in your hand. The Explore app doesn't have the parcel data, but it does have the public lands, and you can see all of that on top of a topographic map.
Now the screen looked like it was a touch face screen.
It's a button interface here, so that if you have your glove, if it's cold or muddy or wet, whatever, and you've got a glove on your hand, you can use the buttons for it. It is a large display, so you have a nice, clear, transflective display. It will work really well in bright sunlight conditions, and has a backlight if you have low light conditions. So really powerful. I think one of the things.
And then, so basically, I don't have to carry. Like, let's say I was going back to BC. I don't need a phone.
It's true.
I can and I don't need, I can have my map chip in there and I can navigate it and see all that. Plus it's got my inReach all in there as well. So I don't need a phone. I don't need a GPS. I don't need an inReach. It'll do all three.
That's right. All three built in. For all the power of having everything tied into one device, it really is nice. I don't have to carry my phone. I don't have to carry a separate satellite communication device.
So the Fenix, like I use the Fenix watch a lot, and it gives me my UTM code on demand. I can sit there and I can mark a hike, and it'll GPS track me where I'm going. I mark waypoints, which I like to do, especially if I'm in a hurry, I'm leaving the tent, boom, I'll hit that waypoint and I'll go forward. But one of my complaints was it didn't really interface with my devices.
Yeah. That has all. So the Bluetooth capability of the Phoenix to connect to the GPS Map 66i, connect to the Mini, that's all there now. And there's a little widget that runs on the watch called the inReach remote widget that allows you to send preset messages, to respond to incoming messages with a quick text response. You could, if you wanted to, even pull up the little keyboard that's on the device. It's a vertical scrolling list of letters and numbers.
Dang.
It's slow, and certainly only like as a last resort. But if you found yourself, you really have to step back and say, well, if it was an SOS situation and I actually damaged my phone in the fall, I may, and I can't get to the inReach Mini, I may use the watch to type that. The Mini has the same vertical scrolling list, and in a pinch, you can use it to communicate broken leg or something that really had to get out.
The one thing I like about it though is being able to use my watch to track GPS and to mark GPS. And this Phoenix lasts, I have the Plus, I think, and it'll give me a good 2 weeks in the backcountry. At the very least 10 days. Battery life. And I like to use it to do the breadcrumb thing. I like it to track my route, things like that. I like to mark my tent and and not have to turn on a big device to do that. But what's bothersome is I've come home and I can't get the waypoints and the tracks and stuff off my watch and onto a map system to actually utilize it across platforms.
Yeah. Well, the Explore app, I see now what you're describing with the Explore app. I'm not sure if you've had a chance to try that, but you can actually pair your Phoenix watch to the Explore app that's on your phone. Same with the GPS Map 66i, and that will sync automatically your waypoints and your activities that you've completed, any routes that you've created, and it will sync that onto the Explore app and then send that up to the cloud, to the Explore site that you can use for with your computer or with your phone. It's a cloud storage system. It has the ability to use the planning tools that are on the Explore site. You can, for example, you have a big hunt that's coming up, and we've talked about New Zealand. You can actually create a collection of data where you've planned out the special waypoints you want to go and see. And maybe you've even drawn in some routes to help you get to those locations. You can put those in a collection, name it after the hunt that you're going on, sync that down to the Explore app, and then push that onto your Phoenix, onto your watch, have it appear on your GPS Map 66i. We really like to talk about a system of products. It's not just the watch or just the GPS Map 66i. It's a system. The ecosystem for inReach is now the device, the 66i, the wearable, the Phoenix, the app on the phone, the Explore app, and the website, the Explore website. You also have that social component where you can send your map share to friends and family. It ties everything together, and the data that you plan ahead of time on the Explore site, the data you create while you're in the tent before the big hunt in the Explore app, the data you create in the field by sending and receiving.
Really?
It all lives together, and you don't have to worry about being
sweet.
I used Basecamp. I loved Basecamp in the day, but that was tied to a single computer, and I had to come back to that computer. Now it's all in the cloud. Mm-hmm. You can access it from a website, from any computer, New Zealand, back in the States, and have access to everything.
So do you know if you have maps for New Zealand then?
There are. I would have to look online to see the exact maps, but we have OpenStreetMap data for the world. And then Garmin has specialty maps that are sold on SD card or for download. And when you go to buy.garmin.com, there's an entire mapping section of their site. And that's where you can go to find all the different maps for anywhere in the world to see what's available. Right in the inReach and the Explore world, you can download OpenStreetMaps, which is a crowdsourced map, and you can get those for anywhere in the world as well. There's also as I mentioned, the Topo North America maps. Those are available, and there's a digital atlas of the Earth is an atlas, a map that can go on the Explore app that has data.
Are your Hunt View maps, are they somewhat global, or are they just for North America, or do you know?
That is a good question. I believe Hunt View in particular is for North America. I can get more detail back to you, and you can maybe make that available to your listeners.
I'll follow up, over time on that. I know when we went to New Zealand, OnX didn't have a map for that. We had to use a different map system we downloaded to our phone, New Zealand Topo or something like that. I can't remember what it was called. So, it would be nice to have another interface. Now, what's cool about Garmin products is they do allow other chips to be used. So I can use any existing hunt maps I have from other brands, and they'll interface on that device. Does that impede the sharing of data between devices at all? It should just store your waypoints the same and your tracks the same.
That's right. Think of it as your user data. Any waypoints, tracks, or routes that you create, that's really independent of the map that's in the background that your data is drawing on top of. So all of that data goes between device and app and website, and even out to MapShare if you've chosen to make it visible.
Okay. So getting back to the rescue process.
Yep.
What would you say would be the best practice when, how would you kind of, you found yourself in a sketchy situation, and perhaps we need to back up even further, step by step. We talked about when you arrive, you mark the truck location. Yep. Maybe you turn on breadcrumb, depending on probably how you want to manage battery life and so forth. But, where do you go from there?
Well, you've hit on the key. It's that it actually, your preparation for any of your activities, really, it starts before you find yourself in the emergency. I go for myself, my prep starts before I leave the house. I just make sure that my subscription is active and everything's running well. I'll step out onto the porch and send a test message. And that just sends a test up to the satellites and back down, and it gives me a little green check mark that says, yep, everything's running. And then I'm like, okay, good. I've done my test at the house. Then, I'll send my map share to friends and family so that they know, oh, I'm going on a big event. I want you to follow along and know what I'm up to. I may plan some waypoints or a route ahead of time, get those onto the device and into the app so that I can see them. So kind of doing that at the house ahead of time saves you some headache when you get to the trail if you forget.
It's really part of the e-scouting process too, as you determine, okay, I think I'm going to camp in this basin. I think I'm going to hit this. This looks like a good area where elk might be and all that kind of stuff. You've kind of already put all those things in place. And at that time, you're interacting with the GPS and putting those waypoints in.
Yeah. It's just
what about? And then what's the best practice for letting, putting contacts in the device and things like that?
Yeah. So when you set up the device, our website actually walks you through a process of creating your emergency contacts. I even put in, there's a little note field for special information if you had an emergency that.
Like I'm diabetic or.
Yeah, I have type O negative blood. They better bring that in or I'll be in trouble. So those sort of things you put into that note field. And then you just double check that before you go out on your trip. If you have someone that is coming with you that has a anaphylactic shock or whatever it is that someone might need to know, you just do a quick update, and that makes sure that GS knows everything they need. So then you've done your planning, you've done a little, like you mentioned, e-scouting, you've synced content down to the device and that sort of thing. When you get to the trailhead to start your trip, the thing that is most important, as we talked about earlier, just turn that device on. Let it get a 3D GPS fix so that it knows exactly where the truck is. knows roughly where, or not roughly, knows exactly where you are. And, maybe even create a waypoint at the location of the vehicle. Or if you've already done planning, you could just send a check-in message that says, I'm checking in from the trailhead, everything's okay. Then, again, based on how long you're going to be out there, what you feel your battery needs would be, what data plan you've chosen. If you're in the safety plan or if you're in recreation, you can start tracking and clip it to your pack, and you've got that 10-minute tracking for your whole hunt. Or if you are out for a long time, you want to save battery, at least you've checked in and they know where you're starting. That gives Yep, go ahead.
I was just going to say, price-wise, some guys are probably sitting here wondering, well, how much is this going to cost me right now? And I think I have unlimited everything. And I think that's $50 a month, or
the expedition plan. There are two different ways to look at it. There's an annual plan that has pricing for all 12 months. So there's a little bit of a price break if you commit to a full year of service. There's also the Freedom Plan, which is very popular, especially in the hunting crowd, because you may not be hunting year round. It may just be, for myself, October to January is my hunting season. And then I could choose to suspend my data plan in the off months. And
that's what I do.
Yeah. So it's very flexible. Then once you decide annual or Freedom for the plan, you can choose the safety plan, which is at the lower end of the price point. It has 10 messages included in it each month, and all the plans have unlimited SOS messaging. But if you wanted to track your trip, then it would charge it's 10 cents per track point, so you can see over the an hour is 60 cents. So the plan that I encourage people to get into is actually the recreation plan, because that's the first one that has unlimited tracking. And again, all the plans have unlimited check-in messages too. So at that recreation level, you can send an "I'm checking in, everything's okay" message as many times as you want. There's 3 of them that you can customize, 3 preset messages. You can track unlimited for your whole trip, and you get 40 messages a month with that plan. And remember that sending and receiving counts as messages. If friends send you lots of messages, it will use your data plan.
Yeah.
I think the plan that you have is great. It's the expedition plan. So you have the unlimited expedition Freedom plan. That's excellent because it gives you as many messages as you want to send. You don't have to worry about managing your messaging. Unlimited tracking. The only thing you have to decide is, how long is the trip? Am I bringing an external battery source so I can recharge the device on a week-long trip? Or is it just a weekend event and I can turn the thing on, start tracking, and go? And
what I do is I run that plan September, October, November, because I'm pretty much out in the field most of those 3 months. And then December, I'm not out there at all. Pretty much. I'm back home. So then I just knock down the plan to the minimum cost, which I think is like $20 a month. So throughout the year, I spend $20 a month, and then I can ramp it up to the 50 for unlimited anytime I'm getting ready to go out for a month or so. And so for me, I probably pay around that $50 mark, during bear season. I'll do it for a month or 2. I do it in the fall, and then maybe January when I go hunt Coues deer in Arizona for a couple of weeks. And that's kind of my, so I'd say about half the year it's unlimited for me, and I can use up 10 or 12, 20 messages in one day.
Sure.
And if I'm out there with buddies, we're texting each other throughout the day, especially in certain areas where it's completely, some states you can't use a two-way communication of any kind to aid in the capture or even looking at game, even scouting. A lot of states though, it's completely legal. And if I'm on one canyon and I text back to my buddy and say, dude, you got to get over here because there's 100 elk down here, and the wind is blowing here. You need to get to this point. I might bump them your way. That two-way communication is is super valuable. So, we don't have self-service. I don't do the radio thing anymore, ever. Now I have a much more reliable two-way form of communication in the form of inReach to inReach. And so that's pretty much how we roll nowadays.
Yeah. Great.
And so, 40 messages is not enough for me. I use that too much. Now, in the past, I remember when I used to roll with a Spot device years ago, I just sent a message, the canned message. You had like 2 canned messages. One was like, we're all okay. And I just sent that once or twice a day just so my wife knew I was alive. And that was it. But now, I just can't imagine not having that ability to just talk throughout the day to my wife and the kids and anyone I want to. What's really cool too is I have friends that are deep in the backcountry, and I know their inReach handle, so I can just text them anytime I want through inReach to inReach, and it's no different than texting a buddy through your phone.
Yeah, no, definitely. You hit on one of the really important features for inReach. It allows you to message between the 2 devices, and it sends your location. So as you pointed out, if you needed a friend to come over because you found a hot spot, they'll know exactly where you're messaging from. They see it on the map. They can create a route to you. It's a really powerful feature.
So how long does the battery last on the 66i?
The 66i has a couple of different modes. The device is really a workhorse for a handheld GPS device. It has high detail tracking, location tracking. When you use it with its default settings, it gets 35 hours of battery life. So it's not as long as the inReach Explorer Plus, which was really more of a satellite communication device with basic handheld GPS features. But it's a very powerful device. There's also a new mode that we've created called Expedition mode. When you're in Expedition mode, it does a few things. It turns off the Bluetooth connection, so you won't be connected to your phone, but it saves a lot of battery life. It does it by reducing the frequency of the GPS logging. So its breadcrumb trail is not as detailed, but still plenty of detail for someone traveling on foot. It turns off the Bluetooth, as I mentioned. It turns off the display, so you're not going to see the screen all the time, but you can reach over, wake the device up, get your updated map information, and
Wow.
then continue on your way.
Okay, so similar to the Explorer.
Yeah, very, very similar to
Plus.
Explorer at that point. And Expedition mode and the 200-hour battery life is there. And again, it's through turning off a few of the features that use a lot of the battery when it's in that high-performance handheld GPS mode.
Which most of the time I don't need it in that mode, really. I do need it to be on as a two-way communication device, and that's it, But I always like the idea of having that GPS mapping. Nowadays, man, I use paper maps and a compass a lot.
Yeah.
It's just, I've gotten really good at that. Most of the terrain I'm very familiar with, and especially when I'm hunting more open country, you just have your bearings figured out,
Sure.
But I'll tell you when a GPS really shines is when you're doing a night pack out.
Sure.
And that's happened to me a lot, it seems like. And you can spend hours trying to wander around in the dark with a paper map and a flashlight, where a GPS is gold.
Yeah.
It just helps you when you're blind. So same thing in some snowstorms and blizzards that we experience. So earlier I cut you off when we were talking about best practices. So let's get back to that. So you're putting in your contact information. You put in that stuff into the when you set it up. You've told them your blood type, things like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Then where do you go from there? You get out of the truck, you mark your spot.
Yeah, that's the key. So you get out of the vehicle, you turn the device on, you let it get that GPS fix so it knows exactly where you are. Send that check-in message. So now the website has that location, and you can send your MapShare link. There's an option to send a MapShare message to friends and family, letting them know that you're starting the hunt. That kind of gives them a sense, okay, you're actually in the field now, and they'll know, okay, if I want to reach out and check in or send a message, go to the MapShare page, and they can do that. Then you get to decide. We've talked a lot about what your data plan is, what your battery life needs are for the particular trip. You decide, am I going to send that message and then power the device off and put it in the pack, or am I going to leave the device powered on and clip it to my hunting vest or my backpack? Am I going to start tracking because I'm in the recreation plan and it's only a 1 or 2 day outing? You kind of make those decisions, and then you make sure the device is positioned well for good reception of GPS signal and good reception of Iridium satellite signal. And then you go about your trip. And the hope for me at that point is you get into the moment and you're not thinking about the tracking or the satellite communication. You're hunting. You've got to, you're there for a different purpose than technology. And you rely on your watch, that's connected all the time to that device. If a message comes in, the watch will let you know, and you do your hunt. You have the fun that you're out there for, and so then now imagine that something does happen, an emergency comes up. That's when you can declare the SOS from your watch. You can declare the SOS from your phone. You can take the device. I believe we know most people in that real emergency situation, they just take the device and they mash the SOS button and make sure that their signal goes out. We talked a lot about the need to have a clear view of the sky. So if you have that emergency and you press the SOS button and you have the ability, it doesn't hurt to hold that thing out where it has a clear view and wait for the message to go out. You'll have it makes a little sound to let you know the message was sent. You can see that the animation has stopped. That lets you know the message was sent. GEOS will reply right away as soon as they receive it. The person at that dispatch center will send you a reply. We've received your SOS message. What's the nature of your emergency? Then reply to them. That's in the best practice world. That's the best way to let them know that it's an medical emergency or an equipment failure, that kind of thing.
So what if, because there's that human element, what if that human element doesn't work? Because in some ways you're reliant on that GEOS to do their part of the job, right?
Yep.
So, just me thinking, just contingency plans. I feel like I would also like to reach out to a buddy or, some friends and be like, look, I'm in a really bad spot here.
Sure. Well, the system is designed with GEOS receives the message, and then they start by contacting your emergency contacts. So 2 people that you have identified ahead of time will be notified right away. The SOS message only goes to GEOS, but then they, as part of their process, they reach out to the person who's had the emergency. They reach out to local search and rescue in the area where the emergency happened. So they would get in contact. They have a vast database of search and rescue organizations around the world. If you were in New Zealand, they would reach out to the organization that's responsible for rescues there. They also notify the 2 emergency contacts you have. So some family member, friend is notified. Then from there, as the person having the emergency, the inReach system allows you to have a conversation with a friend or family member. You can send casual messages even though an emergency is happening. You could reach out, for myself, I would probably reach out to my wife and say, hey, this has happened. I declared an SOS. Here's some details that I'll provide you, and let's chat back and forth. We're dealing with the situation. And then also reach back to GEOS. If you feel like, gosh, I declared my SOS and they asked for the details and I gave them the details, but I haven't heard back from them. And it's been half an hour, an hour. Send that reply directly to them and say, hey, can I get an update? And they work to keep search and rescue updated as to what's happening. They also work to keep the person in the emergency updated. The communication, the send and receive capability is there.
Yep. So one thing I think is important for people to understand is that, when this SOS button is pushed, there's a chain reaction of events that take place. Now, let's say you're in Wyoming versus Arizona versus, British Columbia. You're going to be dealing with a different local rescue organization or group.
That's true.
And some are going to be better than others. That is not something that you or Garmin or anyone else has control over. That's just part of how that state, that's how that group is run. And so again, not every rescue organization has the same resources, same money, same equipment, same expertise. And so I'm loath to ever need to use the SOS button. I don't like, being in a situation where I would need to rely on a lot of this kind of chain reaction unknown, situation. At the same time, as a last resort, knowing it's there and having that option, it absolutely saves lives. Yeah. But I'm under no illusion that it's this I'm going to have the world's most renowned, foremost expert fly in and save me. It could be just some local that has a chopper or has a snowmobile for all I know. Right. So they do the best they can with what they have. But the GEOS, their job is a global rescue, like connection service, right? Like mobilization service. So they dispatch. Yeah. So their job is to, wherever you're at, get the local rescue group out there to get you. But that group is different from area to area to area.
It's true. It's true. I think you've hit on a very good point. Expectation for the system, it certainly, it depends on the information that's been provided and on, the area where you are. The idea that, we run into it sometimes, people can be very remote, way in the backcountry and mountaineering examples, and someone will have an emergency and declare an SOS. And expectation, GS does a very good job of setting expectation for extraction. They'll say, we've been in contact with the search and rescue, and that local area search and rescue is responsible for the rescue. GEOS doesn't actually have anything beyond dispatching and then communicating, but they'll share, okay, here's the ETA based on what we've heard from local area search and rescue. There are times where special equipment, as you mentioned, special equipment might be needed. If it's a high altitude, the helicopter, they may need to find a special helicopter that can go to the altitude that the person is at. Yeah. That takes extra time. It could be real difficult terrain. Sometimes we find rescues that have to be handled by people on foot. Those kind of situations are there. So I think you've really hit on an important piece. And that's why I've come back several times to talk about interacting with search and rescue. So you've done everything as the user to make sure that you were prepared. You did your planning, you got the system, you tested your gear, you sent your message from the trailhead, you did everything right. If the emergency happens, keep taking advantage of the equipment and ask for those updates. They're going to send you updates, but if you ever feel like, gosh, I feel like I'm not exactly aware of what's happening. Where is the helicopter? Text that message and ask for a detail.
Yeah, I think it's sometimes somewhat naive when people get a device like this and they're like, okay, I have this global device that has, global rescue options, and they're in Mexico or they're in Mongolia. It's not like we've got a U.S. jet on its way. You're dependent now on, the Mexican rescue services, and that's perhaps, not at the same level as what you're going to experience in Montana. Yeah. So I think that those expectations need to be clearly understood. This isn't some kind of magic rescue process. Like there's a whole network of and chain reaction events that happen, and understanding the reality of the situation you're in might actually help you make a very informed decision if you're going to go into a certain spot. I know in New Zealand, Ryan Lampers and I got ourselves into some pretty sticky situations a number of times. And, I can see how it'd be very easy for me to get hurt in a place like that. Very easy. Those New Zealand mountains, Southern Alps are really dangerous. They could kill you like that. That's not even as intense as the West Coast. And so it's nothing to joke around with. And so, but you're dependent on whatever services are in that local area. Now, thankfully, in that country, they're pretty dang good, really good. I would say top notch. But in some other countries, you hit some mountains, like I said, in, I don't know, Mongolia, you're probably not going to have much in the form of rescue coming to get you. So you need to understand that stuff when you're going into an area.
Yeah, I know that GEOS, they have their database of search and rescue that they reach out to. Sometimes it's actually messages to the embassy for the country that you're in to see what's available. I always recommend people do their research ahead of time. You can find out what resources are available if I have an emergency in these different countries. You can even provide action plan details into your Explorer account. Those notes, I have lots of ambassadors, people that are closely connected with Garmin that go out for these special events, and they'll put extra notes right in there that say, in the case of an emergency, contact these organizations, because we know that they are equipped to come and help with the situation. You can provide extra details, and GEOS always honors that information. There are even other. It's certainly more expensive, but global rescue is a popular, very for international travel, and GEOS will connect with them. They just want to make sure that the person having the emergency gets the assistance that they need. So there's a lot of options, and I'll just mention GEOS also has some for international travel. There's some insurance that you can purchase that will help if you need medical evacuation from another country or that sort of thing. That will cover the cost of your rescue if you pick up that insurance. So lots of options for people doing international travel.
Yeah, I've heard about that. It's something I'm very keen, as I've done a few trips in overseas in different countries. Getting back to some of the uses of the 66i in the inReach, when I was in New Zealand, especially, it was real, steep mountains. There was a couple feet of fresh snow. It was freezing, thawing, really needed crampons and ice axes. Didn't have them. We were kind of making do with what we had. And one of the things that we were extremely reliant on, and we were just a drop camp back there for like 12 days or 10 days and then coming out. And we had weather windows. There were some times where we wanted to hike over the top of a mountain and into another drainage, and knowing if it was going to be whiting out or fogged out, or if it was going to rain and then freeze into ice. Those are real, true, and dangerous situations, and we needed to know to make decisions on the hunt what the weather was going to do. And it was really cool to have the inReach, because we pretty much got we got really accurate weather forecasts for right where we were at. Every day, every night we'd get those forecasts. We'd sit there and kind of go through them. So can you describe how that works? Because I think a lot of guys don't even know that that's an option.
Wow, that's an excellent point. And yeah, I should have described that. The weather feature for inReach is very powerful. As you pointed out, it works anywhere in the world. It's a satellite message from the device. There are a couple of different types of forecast. You can get a land-based forecast or a marine forecast. The forecasts are basic or a premium forecast. The difference is in the duration of the forecast. So a basic land forecast will give you a 24-hour forecast. It will tell you a bunch of different important details like your temperature, your precipitation. It will tell you what kind of weather conditions are coming in. Lots of things that will help with a hunt for planning purposes. The way it works is you send your message. A basic weather forecast just counts as one message. So in that safety plan, you have 10 of them. In the recreation, you have 40, or as you are in that expedition plan, you can send as many weather forecasts as you want. The premium forecast and the marine forecast, those each cost $1. So if you're out on a fishing trip, you can get a marine forecast for offshore fishing, and that'll give you, wave heights and wind speeds and things they're very important in a marine environment. The message is sent for the location where you're specifically located. It uses the marine forecast uses Oceans. That's the weather forecasting service that we're tied in with. The land forecast uses Dark Sky. That's a very popular weather forecasting tool. And very powerful. As you mentioned, you don't have cell phone coverage. You can't just pull up the weather app. And so you can fetch a weather forecast anywhere in the world and get that information right away.
Yeah, there's no doubt we would have been screwed a couple of times if we didn't have the forecast. We were going to make some decisions that probably weren't the best. And it also helped us manage and conserve. So we were like, okay, today's really bad. Let's hold up. It says it's going to clear up this late afternoon. Let's go out then.
Yep.
And then let's hustle. And we estimate how many hours it would take to get to where we want to be. And then when the weather came back in the next day, which it was going to, we're like, okay, well, we'll tuck in. We'll wait for that to pass. And then we'll be where we want to be to go after these tar. And it worked like a charm. And we followed it to the T. And so, yeah, it was pretty powerful, because otherwise we could have made a lot of bad mistakes or bad decisions and dealt with freezing rains and then freezing at night and being soaking wet and being in a tent and no longer in a hut, and just different scenarios. So it was really, really powerful. And when I'm hunting maybe in Arizona and it's sunny 14 days in a row, it's like I don't need it as much, but man, I really felt the value of it when I was in that mountaineering setting in New Zealand in the late season.
Yeah, great.
Gosh, Chip, is there anything else that we're leaving out that we should cover?
One of the things I did want to touch on, if for any of your listeners who are inReach users, we do kind of a deep dive, like a webinar on inReach technology. We cover the app, the website, the devices. Those have been recorded and are available. If anybody is interested, they can go to the Garmin support site and just search for inReach field experience webinars and the training webinars. Those are up there.
They're on YouTube as well?
Yeah, on YouTube as well, Garmin's YouTube channel. And there's also the Garmin blog. If you go to, I got my link here.
And I'll put these links in the description on the YouTube video. If you go to briancall.com and you click on the video of this podcast, you can look in the description on YouTube. You'll see all the info there. And it looks like it's support.garmin.com.
That's right.
And www.garmin.com/blog.
Perfect. And there's also a newsletter where we share some exciting things going on. Sometimes we'll have a person who's had an SOS rescue and wanted to share their story so that people can hear. It's very rewarding, for myself being a product manager for inReach. I love to hear the stories from people who have been impacted by the work that we do here at Garmin. You'll hear stories about people who are doing special events, special activities, and using inReach. That shows up on the newsletter as well. When people sign up for their inReach account, one of the choices they make is if they want to opt in for the marketing material. If you want to find out about the newsletter, you want to hear about webinars when they're coming out, just go and turn on that opt-in choice, and then you'll get that newsletter.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like it.
Great.
All right. Well, Chip, I think we can wrap this up. I'll ask people that are listening to send in their questions to me, and if you want more discussions like this, we can send me what your recommendations are, what you'd like to hear in addition to what we've just done, and we could bring Chip back on and go over that some more.
Absolutely.
I'm excited to play around with the stuff. I want to check out the hunt maps, the hunt view, and I want to look at the 66i, be more knowledgeable on all of that and how it works. There's some hunts where it's hard for me to give up the simplicity and the small stature of that inReach Mini, and just run that. And then there are hunts where that 66i would be the way to go. So,
right. A lot of flexibility.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. You guys may have engineered yourself out of a couple of the Explorer, though. I don't know. I mean, you may have undercut your own product here.
Well, we think the key for us is to make sure that there's a wide range, and so you've got that real small inReach Mini, and you've got the flagship handheld with the GPS Map 66i, and the Explorer Plus is holding its ground in that middle tier there, with the basic navigation features.
Yeah. It's kind of a niche in each one. They're just a little bit different. Right. They offer a little bit different options for whatever your situation is. I can see a lot of those guys in BC not opting for the 66i. They'll still run that Explorer. I can see in my backyard here, I'm probably going to bring the Mini in my phone for the stuff like right here. But if I'm going to New Zealand, I'm doing 66i.
Yeah. Well, that competitive product chart there, that's going to be an important thing for a lot of people as they research what's the right fit for them.
Yeah. And, I want to dive into the maps a little more, and then I can talk about it somewhat. I haven't got into the Garmin maps that much, so this will be good. I'll mess around with that and see how they're stacking up, and it's neat to see that all these devices now interfacing with each other. That whole ecosystem working together.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, Chip, appreciate it, man. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Blast. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, folks. There you have it. That's it for today. Stay gritty, friends.